Hey everyone, welcome to our SAG-AFTRA Foundation conversation for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. What an amazing, powerful, must-see movie that is streaming now on Netflix. And joining us for our SAG-AFTRA Foundation conversation, very excited to once again to be talking with the amazing Colman Domingo. Hello, how are you holding up with everything, friend?
I'm doing very well, my friend. I really can't complain. I'm healthy. That is the first and foremost thing. And I just feel hopeful and very positive right now, which is great because, we've all been through it this year. And I think if you're coming out on the other side with hope and believing that, you're going to have some impact on the world, it's a good time.
Couldn't agree more. I just feel like, we're some very good news recently, and I hope it keeps getting better. But I must say, watching this film, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, I was absolutely floored by the emotional power of this film, by the power of the performances, by the true ensemble nature of this film, which is such a great tribute to the amazing August Wilson and others, and we'll get to that. Now, normally I would sort of know where to begin, but there's so much to this film, I don't even know where to begin. So I'm going to throw it to you, Colman, and ask you, where would you like to begin to start talking about how this came about for you?
It came about, I guess, by sticking around. I guess sticking around. It's funny. I auditioned for George C. Wolfe 4 times in my career when I was a New York actor in the theater, and I've always admired George and the worlds that he created, and I wanted to be a part of it. And I never had that opportunity in New York, but I was in New York actually for a press week for something, and my agents and managers happened to be there, and they're never there at an interview. And they spoke to me outside of AOL Build. And they said, Colman, an offer just came in for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, directed by George C. Wolfe, produced by Todd Black and Denzel Washington, Viola Davis. I was like, okay, stop. I'm doing it. I don't even know what the role is, but I'm going to be a part of it. I couldn't say yes fast enough. I didn't need to hear any more. All I knew was that they wanted me in the room with whatever I could bring. And they assembled such an incredible cast of stalwarts of talent that's raw, that you want to wrestle with, because August Wilson's language is so dense. It is tricky and it's hard. Ask anyone who's done an August Wilson play, and they will tell you that it challenged them in ways they couldn't imagine. Once you think you know the play, it tells you again, it reinvents itself over and over again because there's so many levels to it to play. And so the idea of wrestling with these guys, I was just super excited, and I could not start rehearsal fast enough. And first of all, when I heard that we're going to have 2 weeks of rehearsal, that was shocking. And so I knew that this was part of, the wheelhouse of doing August Wilson's work. I was like, you need that rehearsal. You need to get in there and wrestle with this language. And so we rehearsed for 2 weeks, and we were on our way.
Well, listen, as far as, George C. Wolfe is concerned, I mean, this was the right time for you to work with him on the big screen. But in terms of August Wilson, this is not your first time doing an August Wilson. So what is it about that rhythm, about that dialogue that makes August Wilson so unique in addition to his voice?
August Wilson is the Black Shakespeare of our times. Agreed. He writes the way Black people actually speak. He writes with a sense of tradition and history, and it crackles and it pops, and it feels like you're a fly on the wall. So I know that for me, it felt like I didn't have to go so far outside of myself to do research. I had to go to my uncles and my aunts and their stories and images of my family in the past, from the Great Migration, you name it. The thing about August's language is it's colloquial, it is regional, it feels like it represents so much of Black America, whether African Americans that come from the South or the North, and there's always a conversation about Southerners coming north, et cetera, and bringing all that they have with them. They still sometimes have the same mentality, and they're trying to make it in the city. They're all after the American dream. I first became experienced with August Wilson's work when I played Gabriel in Fences at a company called TheaterWorks in California in the late 90s. And then it wasn't again until I directed a production of Seven Guitars at Actors Theater of Louisville. And boy, that was a feat, because Seven Guitars is tough. It is a hard play, and it wears you out. Ask any director. You will go home almost in tears, because there's so much size and so much on your shoulders to get right. There's so many nuances, and there's so many and the rhythms. And he writes because you could tell that he loves jazz and blues. And there's so much of our experience in America that has that just fully laid out. So it's in the rhythms, and you have to get on that rhythm, because the moment you're off of it, you're off of the play, you're off of the stakes, you're off of the conflict. So you have to stay on it. And so I love the way actually we filmed it, because we rehearsed it like a play. So therefore the camera moves were sort of outside the action and not too interior to the action, because you needed that ensemble. We are playing like a band. No one can do what they're doing without the other, without 4 or 5 other people. So the beautiful thing about that is that that what August requires is your ears on at all times. You're available, you're listening, you're looking, because there's a ping pong match happening, and you're trying to get caught in it. You want to be caught up in it, because that's what the engine is. The engine is moving forward, and you've got something to help stoke the flames of it. So it requires artists that are very interested in being part of an ensemble. You can't just pull yourself out and let it be your performance. Your performance is dependent on these other people. I owe what I did to all these people in the room, and I'm sure that every other actor would say the same thing.
All those people in the room, what was it like the first time all those people were in the room?
Oh, no. The first person I got into the room, and I drove over with Michael Potts. And I've been an admirer of Michael Potts since The Wire and seeing his work on stage. And he's just kind and easy. And so immediately I just knew that we would just have a lot of laughs, because he lives in a very light place. And then I saw Glenn Turman. And Glenn Turman, I almost wanted to bow down to, because I've known this man and his work for years, and his work just kept evolving. And he was in the original production of Raisin in the Sun as a kid, and Cooley High, you name it. So I knew that I had a lot to learn from this man too, because of he's just a seasoned pro. And then the next person who came into the room was Viola. And Viola and I, we become comrades and friends, and we tried to do another film together a while ago. But she comes in just with sweetness and kindness and grace. And then the final person who came into the room that day was Chadwick. And Chadwick came in, and the first thing he said to me was like, "Oh, Colman, I can't wait to dance with you." Because we have been trying to dance together for years. I was actually, we met early on in New York when we did a reading of a play, like in the early 2000s. And then I was actually in the movie 42, but they cut my role. I had a very small part. I had a very, very small part, but we worked together for a moment, me, he, and Nikki Bahari. And but we didn't really get a chance to really get in there. And I guess he knew my work from the theater, and he respected me. He was always saying, "I can't wait to play with you." And so that's the first thing he said. And he just looked at me, he had his hat on, his brim was down low, and he already had the trumpet in his hand, actually, because he was becoming married to that trumpet, which was great. So he looks at me like that, and it's just like, you knew it was on. You're like, oh, I'm with people who want to challenge each other and who can't wait to wrestle with this work together. So it was in George. George is one of the most intelligent people I know. He sets the stage with nothing but inquiry and discovery and play and interrogation. He wants you to interrogate that one moment 50 different ways. And he stays on you. He's relentless. And so he speaks a lot. He speaks volumes, and he's giving you theater history. He's letting you know in a way where you sort of fit in it, that you're a part of it, and you're going to be a part of it. And he wants you to know as much as he knows. And so your job is required. It's truly required that you have to go and research and stay up late at night learn your trombone, you name it. But that's the room that George set up. He set up a room where we were all away from our families and in Pittsburgh, and it was really warm, and you wanted to just eat, sleep, drink Ma Rainey's Black Bottom.
Wow. Jeez. I got to say, when I was watching this for the first time, because I did watch it more than once, is the things that I thought about were just, wow, the trust, the generosity as actors, that you were there for each other, that it wasn't about your moment, it's about your moment supporting their moment. I like, talk about that dynamic, just that trust and that generosity, that you were all there for each other. You had each other's backs.
You know what? That's what we all hope for as actors. And sometimes we don't get that because people are coming in with ego or some other need that has nothing to do with the project or the piece. And I think that, you know, you have these incredible stars of our time. You have Viola, you have Chad, you have Black Panther walking in the room. And ego is put aside. It was never in the room, to be honest, never, because you knew what was required. We had to go to some vulnerable places and sort of bring a lot of ourselves into our characters. It's not a piece where it's just like, oh, we're putting on, you know, I'm a character actor through and through, and I can put on this and change my body and my voice, and you name it. But also there's another level to August Wilson's work, which is that you bring a lot of yourself and the things. We were cast, I think, perfectly.
Yeah.
Perfectly.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think there's something in Chadwick when he walks in the room, he wants to challenge a little bit, challenge thought, challenge ideology, you name it, and has a little fire in him. He's also a Sagittarius. We're born like a day apart.
Oh, wow.
So, because we talked about our birthdays earlier. Yeah, he's born the day after me, either before me or after me. But so Chad, so he brings that level in him. And then Viola, you know, she comes in with listening to Viola speak about anything is just, she should be a college professor as well, because she's so deep and has so many references as well. And so she comes in with that. Everyone comes in with a gift and saying, I want to give to the brain trust of this piece. Let me see what I can bring. What can I give to it? And without wanting anything back. And that's rare. You're like, I can tell that everyone came in saying, hey, here's a gift today. I'm bringing this in. Let's see where it goes. And I think that level is, I don't know, it's so beautiful to experience. And I'll just tell you this, there's another level put on top of that. Our friend Denzel Washington would come in every day with a little book called The Daily Word. And the Daily Word has scripture or some spiritual passages or something, some food for thought for the day, just to keep you hopeful, have you thinking about your soul. And he would hand it to me. I truly became the band leader, and he knew that he wanted me to sort of inspire my band. So I would read it, and he would talk about it. Now, I hadn't done things like that since I was a kid, sitting around the table with my dad, mom, and sister and brother, having, you know, sort of like Bible school in a way. But what he was doing was handing over and making sure that he knew that what we needed for this work is to be so alive with our spiritual core and to let that go on that screen. So we talk about things that affected us, things that hurt us, things that we struggled with. And it could be trauma. It could be Black trauma, because Black trauma is all over. And every character has experienced Black trauma in America, especially in 1927, being from the South, coming up to Chicago to try to find their voice, have agency in the world. And so we wanted to connect with that and connect with that part of ourselves. So I know that we're connecting as, how does Viola feel in this world? And what does she have to fight for? What part of her can she learn from Ma Rainey, or is she like Ma Rainey? Same with Chad with Levy. Same with me with Cutler and Glenn and Michael and Taylor and everyone else, Jeremy. So I think it was required truly to give a part of yourself. I talk about this a lot. I think I tell my students it's important when I teach. I say it's important for you to put something out there that you'll never get back, to leave something on the floor every take. It's an act of generosity that you have to give a part of your soul.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll get it back eventually, but you've got to let that go. That's got to be a part of it. You've got to do something raw. You've got to do something that you're not really sure of. You got to be uncomfortable. And everyone, when I tell you, we all were in that space, and what a beautiful space it was in. But even to the point that we had a running joke that there's a line that Levy says when he's questioning the way a musician keeps his his piano or something like that. It's not tuned up or something. He says, "Well, if you were any kind of musician, you would get your instrument together." So we would always say that to each other when someone messed up something, broke a line, didn't say a line right, dropped something on the floor. So there was a sense of fun to it as well. But because we were willing to be that raw and make mistakes, because that was a part of it, to look for the edges in a performance.
You were talking about the rehearsal, which is a gift. It's a luxury to really get into rehearsal in a film like this. But you also talked about being perfectly cast. I agree that it is a perfectly cast film, but also about bringing yourself. Everyone brought a little bit of themselves into their roles. So during that rehearsal process, what came out of the rehearsal that wasn't there before? Like, how did that rehearsal process, the evolution through that rehearsal process, bring out things that y'all didn't expect?
That's a great question. Well, the first thing, let's say from my point of view first, which is I showed up to rehearsal, and George took a look at me. I think I was lightly shaved, and he said, "Oh, you look too young. You look too young." I thought you were older. How old are you? I said, "I'm 50. He was like, "You don't look 50. You look too young. You look older." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'll get there. I'll get there." Again, knowing that I'm a character actor, and I know it's energy, it's the way I place my body, it's what I'll eat. And so I gained up to about 10 pounds while in the first 2 weeks of rehearsal, because I knew it was required. I just ate everything, changed my body, my voice, my weight. I'm like, that's what we do. And then I remember George, he said to me, "Where are you from?" Because I think he had an idea about me, to be honest. I think that he thought that I was from, I don't know. I don't even know. I don't want to assume, but I think he thought I was from the suburbs or something. I don't know. I don't know where people think I'm from. I think I confuse people. But I told him, I said, "I'm from inner city Philadelphia." And he was like, "You are?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I can tap into certain things." I said, "But inner city Philadelphia has many things. It's very educated. It's very guttural all at the same time." And I said, "If you met my family, you'll see how different we all are, and I can tap into any one of them." Maybe I have a bit more elocution or something, but I feel like, that's what we do as actors. We go deep. But I know that brought out, it had to bring out more of the raw parts of myself, and the parts of myself. Let me say this. When I'm looking at these men who come from the South, I thought about my stepfather, who had a second grade education. He was from Petersburg, Virginia, who grew up telling me, I think, about his fears of living in white America. And as a teenager, I always just, rebuffed him. I was like, "No, it's not like that anymore. It's not like that." But he had a whole experience that was filled with a little fear, trepidation, but also he was like such a big, manly man, and he had such a great voice. But I know that he had to sort of like code switch a bit too. And I learned from him that. And I learned that Cutler had to do that. I didn't know, sometimes you don't even realize that you code switch. And I know I do code switch. I know when I'm in West Philadelphia, or I'm on a Broadway stage or backstage somewhere or in a theater, you name it. I think that you don't even realize what you're doing. So you have to be very clear. You're like, "Oh, wow, that's actually a part of how I truly make it through the world." And I have to examine that and look at that part of myself. And then the cost of it when you don't speak your truth. Again, I think we hopefully learn from our characters that we're given gifts that help change us in some way and help us really examine your own humanity through theirs, through something that's been written. But with August Wilson, it's been written about with such size. That was true. There was a person like this. And I don't know. So I think that we all sort of leaned into our characters, and I think came out a little differently. I know doing work like August Wilson's Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, you have to be very clear and go deep in terms of your own plight as an African American in this country, your own fears. It has to bring up all of that, and being an artist, because I think the Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is being an artist and trying to have agency in the world, trying to have your voice heard in whatever level you are, and then when in looking at all that promise and all that hope, sometimes the fire goes out, and you have to really examine that. So it's a tragedy, and you have to really go deep with examining that tragedy, which has been indicative of a lot of people in America, but in looking at their struggles, and those struggles are your struggles, and you're just trying to move forward. So we had to really do the work in that way.
Well, it's what I say, Philly represent. Born and raised, my friend. So it's another thing. There you go.
Get out of here, yeah?
Yes, sir. Northeast Philadelphia.
You're from the Northeast? I should have known. West Philly right here.
I'm just proud to be from Philadelphia.
Me too, especially right now. I'm always proud.
We're
the underdogs.
Yes,
we are the underdogs. Go Eagles.
Eagles. Well, listen, watching this film takes place in 1927, but there is, thinking back to Fences and especially Ma Rainey, towards the end of this movie, the position that she is put in and the stand that she takes. There's so much to this film in particular, and of course August Wilson's work, that speaks to today, especially this past year. That was very, very much on my mind while watching this film, especially towards the end of the film. How do you see this film speaking to today?
Man, I think who knew that we would need this film at the end of this year? I didn't know. And I feel like it is a gift, because it is like really watching us wrestle in a room with all the themes that we've been dealing with this year. Ma is truly, she's such a pioneer and a maverick, and she's really she's really spirited, because she's really at the forefront of saying that my life matters, my art matters. And if you want me, have all of me. You can't just have my art and not all of me and the fullness of me. And so she's expressing that. She's saying, I want what I deserve. If my contract says that I get 2 Coca-Colas before I perform, why aren't those Coca-Colas there? It's about, parity. It's about, and she was early in the fight. And I think that, for someone like Ma at that time to have those fights, boy, that was a strong sense of being self-possessed. And so I do know, and I do feel that, especially when it comes to representations of our work, I really hope that we need every opportunity possible to give everyone tools to have the uncomfortable conversations about race. And I think film is a perfect medium, because you can right now you can sit at home on Netflix and watch this and wrestle with these questions and get a sense. Because I think that what August does, he sort of takes you in the room and puts you in the closet and has you sliding open a curtain and says, oh, this is what they're talking about when I'm not in the room. You want to know what we're talking about? It's this. These are the things that, and to be honest, I know for sure, I've had so many conversations this year about DEI practices, you name it, whatever meetings, conferences I've been on. But I think ultimately, I also had to take stock in saying that possibly I've been complicit at times, because I didn't speak my truth. I didn't feel that I had the platform in a way. I felt like there would be something against me in some way, because we're all just trying to work and survive. But then you're like, if you really want to hear my heart and what I think and how I feel, allow that space. Really say that this is a space so we can do some healing. And I think that a lot of the arguments that we've been having this year are so wrapped up in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. And so I think it's going to be, there is some hope in there. I think there's hope in there. Looking at how hard we work to try to have agency in our lives. You know what I mean? How we we're trying to move the dial. Ma Rainey moved the dial for a moment when it comes to smashing tropes about herself and deconstructing racist systems. You know what I mean? So I think she moved the dial a bit. And with every generation, you move the dial, And so I think it's nice. What I think is great is to examine in our history. And I think that's what we have to do. Because I don't want to get into all that, but I will. But I just say that because, we get amnesia because it's uncomfortable for us to talk about the things that really hurt us or a feeling that we have been a part of. And I hope that we don't get amnesia quickly after these moments that we've had this year with unrest in the streets, you name it. I hope that we're able to really say, oh, I need to keep doing the work. Like reading White Fragility wasn't enough. Having conversations with my Black colleagues wasn't enough. I have to keep on it. I have to know their history. I have to know, like we have to know you, you have to know us. Watch our films, support more films like Ma Rainey, more stories, diverse stories in that way about people that you know nothing about, to understand the world that we're all the same and we all want the same thing. So I think that I'm so happy actually that Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is out at the end of this year. I do feel like it's the Christmas gift that we all need, because I feel like it's not only about entertainment these days, it's gotta be about how are we gonna change, how are we gonna shift, how are we gonna heal? And I think you can be entertained at the same time and to not be afraid of it. So I think Ma Rainey's going to come at folks to do the work.
I've amen to all of that. And this film is a gift for so many reasons. One of them, of course, being Chadwick Boseman, who gives the performance of his career in this movie. And it hurts to say that it's the last time we'll get to see him in a film. And just your experience working with him, Colman, and also was there a scene that you did with him that really stuck out that you took with you after filming wrapped?
Yeah, Chad had a great sense of humor. Chad was fun to work with. He worked hard, showed up. And so the idea, let me work backwards. I heard from a friend that Chad passed when I was doing something trivial at home, like putting something on the barbecue. And he said, "Did you hear what happened to Chad Boseman?" I was like, "What?" He said, he passed. And I actually really couldn't believe it, because his life force was so big and powerful, and his influence. And he's so young. Even the idea that he was 43, I always thought of him as being younger. I thought of him like, oh, he was a kid in this business. But it was very surprising because let me tell you the work ethic he had. He had an incredible work ethic where he showed up, did the work, challenged everyone with the work. We challenged each other. And I never saw any illness at all. He was always ready to go again and again. We did many, many takes. And when the coverage was on his side, he really liked to work hard, and he really covered it to death. You could ask anybody. And so we had a scene. This was about 4 weeks into shooting, where we have the conversation about God. My character Cutler's telling the story about some atrocities that happened to a Black pastor, and how hurtful that was. And it's one of Cutler's monologues. And Chadwick is listening on the other side. His Levy's listening. And the scene was, we shot a lot of coverage of it, but now we're going to get into the meat of it right before our fight. And he comes out and he challenges me about God's will. And he says, I think part of his monologue was God hates niggas. He don't care anything about them. And I'm like, you can't talk about my God that way. And then Chad gets halfway through the next bit of the speech and something catches him. It's almost like it got caught in his throat. And it's that moment, I tell you, and we're talking to actors here. It's that moment where you know I knew, Chad knew, Michael and Glenn knew. We were all in it. We were working on another level, that we were bringing ourselves into it as well. And he gets choked up, and you could tell he wanted to stop the scene and call cut. I wasn't having it because I pulled him out of it. I started yelling, tell me. I was like, you're not going to leave this scene. And then he turns and he explodes with all the rage in his heart and says, the next bit of lines, which is God hates niggas with all his hearts. God takes a nigga's dreams and throws them away. And oh man, and all that, the pain that was in his eyes, and I know the pain that I felt, how Cutler felt crushed about that. And he felt crushed that he possibly believed that. And then we go at each other with blows. I punch him and he throws me against the wall, and George Wolf calls cut. And all we could do is look at each other with all these tears in our eyes. And I get choked up thinking about it. And we just embraced each other. And we cried. These grown men, we cried right there.
Wow.
And man, Scott, I think we cried. I keep thinking about this, what the tears were about. I look over at Michael and Glenn, and they had tears in their eyes too. It is that part when you bring all of yourselves into the role, and also you don't even know what's in the middle of it. You don't even know what spirit is in there, or what trauma is in there, or what anyone's working with, what Chad was working with. And we cried, and we didn't know why we were crying, but it was a struggle. And that thing in the back of your head is, what if he was right? We're all faithful people. I think everyone on our set, just people of faith in some way. And then you think, when you look at the atrocities that happen in the world, and then that little question that comes up can devastate you. And I think that scene I'll never forget for the rest of my career. And it was silent for a good minute or two after. We couldn't speak. Chad went and sat on the stairs. I went and got myself together. We breathed. And then we knew we had to work some more. We weren't done the film. We had another 3 or 4 days to go. But it was something happening in that moment. And I'll tell you this. We're always called on as actors to feel a lot and take a lot on, be psychically available, to be honest. And I know, and as I look back, I remember for the first time I was depressed for the first 2 weeks of rehearsal. And I'm not a depressive at all. I was severely depressed. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. I would get off the van before we got to the hotel, and I just need to go for a walk. And I couldn't shake something off. And I remember I went to a restaurant, and I sat there and I cried, and I talked to my brother, and my brother had to give me some words, and I felt like I didn't know if I could do it or not. I don't know what it was. I felt like the demands of the role or the experience of it was so much. I didn't know if I was up to it, to be very honest. And I thought, oh, George is going to fire me. I've never told anybody this. I told Michael Potts knows this, but I said, I just felt so depressed. And whatever I think sometimes we're picking up on things of insecurity, of wondering whether or not you can do it, if you have strength, if you have the courage, will you be able to do this? And I look back at it now and I said, I believe in that. I believe that we're picking up on each other's energy and wondering in our souls. We had to work closely together. Of course, we're picking up on things. Any actor listening will know this. You pick up on things and then you work on it together. And so I know that as a company, we took each other's fears, insecurities, and really elevated each other. And I feel very proud to have been a part of that film, knowing where Chad was and what the work that he was doing, which is nothing short of heroic. I'm an able-bodied person, and I don't know how I did it. So for Chad to be struggling the way he was and never showing it, it's almost superhuman. So I admire him even more so in passing. I admired him when he was on this plane, and I admired him after.
Watching this film, when it was over the first time, I needed a moment. I really needed some time to process the power of it. just the way you talked about elevating each other, you could see that. You could absolutely see how you all elevated each other. I mean,
thank you.
And then then I thought about how, like, this is like the last time we get to see Chadwick do this. But we have it, it's there and it's on Netflix, so we can watch it over and over again. And I certainly hope people do that, because I feel like this is a film that is already paid off with repeated viewings for me. Also, I also wanted to ask you that your appearance on Euphoria with Zendaya, like, wow. Okay, can you just talk about working with Emmy winner Zendaya?
Well, first I'll say again, thank you. It is still bittersweet to be on this publicity tour without Chad, because his work is so strong and he's such a part of it. And I think that I'm so happy that people will be able to see this work and see it the way that I know he's proud of. And working with Zendaya, boy, Zendaya is we have such a history. First of all, we actually met when she was 5 years old. And I didn't know this until we were on set the first season, Scott, when we talked about our roots in the Bay Area. And she says, oh, my mother used to run box office at a California Shakespeare Theater. I was like, oh, really? I used to work there a lot. I was there for maybe 5 seasons of my career. She said, oh, really? What did you do? I said, oh, I did a bunch of things. She's like, Mom, she called her mom. She says, Mom, what was the play that I kept watching when I was young, when I kept going? And she said, All's Well That Ends Well. And she said, I used to watch this guy drive up on a motorcycle out in the Festival Glen area, and he would play with me, and I would watch it over and over again. I was like, wait, what? I drove up on a motorcycle and I wore all white. And I do remember playing with this kid, because I was always surprised that some kid, this 5-year-old, was out watching Shakespeare. So she watched it at least 4 or 5 times. And so she said, that was me. So we met when she was a kid. And so now I get to play with her, and boy, she is everything she's beyond talented. I look forward to seeing everything she does. And we have this very special episode where it's just the two of us. It is around Christmas, and it's 2 addicts having some honest conversation and some honest scenarios, challenging each other. It really does pick up at the end of season 1. And it's a nice bridge episode between season 1 and season 2. And I think it's just, I think Sam is another gift that I think that Sam Levinson is giving people, because I think it does respond to all that we've gone through or questioned or wrestled with in this past year.
Well, listen, Colman Domingo, I want to thank you for very much so one of the very best conversations I've had the honor to moderate at the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. I mean, this film, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, on Netflix now is extremely powerful, and so was this conversation. So I thank you for your generosity in just such a wonderful, wonderful talk. Thank you.
Thank you, my Philly brother. I appreciate it.
Okay, be safe and stay well. And thank you, everyone, for watching. And please check out the comments section below to find out how you can apply for COVID-19 relief from the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. Until next time, be well.